The docking bridge hummed beneath my boots as if the entire neutral zone station were holding its breath, which felt deeply unfair because I was the only one here who had legitimate reasons to panic. All I'd expected was a routine prisoner exchange, hand over the captured spy, sign a few digital forms, maybe eat a rehydrated sandwich afterward. Instead, the airlock doors parted with a slow, ceremonial hiss, revealing Queen Theria herself stepping through the drifting vapor, like someone who had absolutely never been told no in her life. Her golden hair caught the overhead lights in shimmering strands, her long ears rising in subtle, unreadable movements as she took in the scene. I had seen her only in broadcast before, usually while sitting in the safest possible location far away from her war fronts. Seeing her now in person, and apparently interested in me specifically, was the kind of shock that made my brain attempt to reboot. My security team straightened so quickly, I thought one might pull a spinal muscle. Theria's gaze swept over them. Then her attention landed on me, and stayed there, which felt like being pinned under a starship spotlight. She stepped forward with slow, unhurried precision, stopping just close enough for me to catch the faint, cool scent of her armor. Metal infused with something like citrus and ozone. Her long ears angled forward as if tasting the air around me. I attempted to nod professionally, but the motion came out as half bow, half spasm, which I am fairly certain was not listed in the diplomatic manual. She circled me once, boots whispering on the metal decking, studying me with an expression so calm I couldn't tell whether she was evaluating my worth or estimating my serving size. My team looked ready to faint. I would have joined them, but I didn't want to embarrass humanity on an international stage. Again. When she came to a stop in front of me, she dismissed my guards with nothing more than a flick of her fingers. Every single one of them obeyed instantly, leaving me alone with the most feared ruler in 3 sectors. Her eyes swept me from head to toe with unsettling interest. Then her voice, smooth as polished stone, yet layered with a sharp undertone, cut through the silence. "You're staying in my quarters tonight, human." There are many reactions a well-trained officer might have in such a situation. Mine was to make a small sound that can only be described as a dying ventilation fan. Theria blinked once, as if cataloging this noise for future study. Before I could say something intelligent, or something at all, her guards returned, not to protect me from her, but to escort me toward her dreadnought. The corridor swallowed us in red light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Massive viewports allowed glimpses of the nebula beyond, swirling in colors no human eye was meant to process without a warning label. The dreadnought's interior architecture was all sharp angles and seamless plates, as though the entire ship had been carved from a single mineral. I noticed several control panels labeled in alien script, each one glowing with gentle bioluminescent patterns. I tried to look like I understood any of it. Spoiler, I did not. The guards led me deeper, the air growing cooler as if the ship itself were exhaling. We passed through security fields that tingled across my skin, and at one point, a hovering drone zipped overhead and scanned my face. It beeped twice in confusion, which was honestly the most relatable reaction I'd gotten since arriving. When we finally reached the Queen's private chamber, the doors peeled open to reveal a room so enormous I wondered if the architect had been compensating for something. A panoramic viewport stretched across the far wall, displaying the nebula battlefield where her armies had once broken a fleet. Even from here, the cosmic dust shimmered like embers suspended in water. Standing before that view, framed by swirling colors, was Theria. She didn't turn immediately, which gave me an entire 3 seconds to absorb the fact that I was alone with a woman rumored to have vaporized a moon during a negotiation. Her long ears flicked in acknowledgement before she faced me fully, eyes narrowing in focused study. I offered a nervous smile, because if this was the last expression she ever saw in me, I wanted it to be at least somewhat friendly. "The prisoner you delivered," she said, voice calm, "was bait." I swallowed, loudly. "Bait," I repeated, as if maybe she would say, "Just kidding." She did not. "You humans have interrogation techniques we cannot replicate. Your species specializes in influence, persuasion, psychological pressure." She stepped closer, stopping within arm's reach. "I wish to learn these methods." I nodded very slowly, mostly because my brain had abandoned the concept of actual speech. Her long ears angled toward me, waiting. A desperate attempt at humor escaped before I could stop it. "I charge by the hour." Silence fell. The sort of silence that could end careers, planets, or my immediate existence. Then, unexpectedly, Theria's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Excellent," she said. "Then let us begin." The door sealed behind us with a soft metallic thrum, the kind that implied it could also seal with significantly more enthusiasm if the queen wished. I stood at the threshold of her chamber, trying not to look like someone who had accidentally wandered into the wrong side of a war. The room opened into a vast expanse of polished black flooring that reflected every faint shimmer of the nebula outside. The ceiling arched high above us, lined with silver conduits that pulsed faintly, like veins of a sleeping creature. If her entire dreadnought was alive, I decided I didn't need to know. Theria moved toward the center of the chamber with unhurried steps, her long ears sweeping upward as though sensing every vibration of the ship around us. She did not gesture for me to follow, yet my legs obeyed on their own, as if compelled by the gravitational pull of sheer authority, or fear, mostly fear. A large interface table rose from the floor as she approached it, columns of alien script flickering to life. I resisted the urge to poke one of the glowing glyphs. My last attempt to touch unknown technology had resulted in a week-long lecture about diplomatic property misuse and a mild but memorable static shock. Theria placed her hand over the interface. The holographic projection expanded outward, forming a three-dimensional reconstruction of a battlefield. Blue figures representing her troops advanced across a scorched terrain. Red figures, human, responded with tactical precision. The simulation's realism made my stomach tighten, at least until the blue soldiers suddenly tripped over a rock that hadn't existed a second before. I blinked. Is that normal? Her ears tilted back in annoyance. The new simulator update is flawed. That makes two of us, I muttered before I could stop myself. She turned her gaze toward me, a sharp flicker of curiosity passing through her golden eyes. My career flashed before me, waved politely, and jumped into an airlock. But instead of reacting with offense, she simply adjusted a glyph on the console and restarted the simulation. I have been reviewing your species interrogation method, she said. Your reports are thorough. Your strategies are subtle, yet your results rely heavily on psychological disruption. I nodded cautiously. Humans are good at being irritating. It's a survival trait. She studied me with unsettling seriousness. Show me. Show you what? Human irritation? Yes. Well, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. Normally we use long lines at government buildings, traffic jams, and customer service calls, but I doubt you have any of those on board. Her long ears twitched upward, the alien equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Demonstrate verbally. I cleared my throat and attempted my best imitation of a hostile interrogator. Confident, methodical, strategically annoying. First step is establishing discomfort. Not physical, just persistent presence. I stepped a bit closer and leaned slightly forward. Invading personal space. She did not flinch. Her expression did not shift. Her ears, however, perked upward, as if assessing the move. Continue. Then you ask repetitive questions, focused but irritating. For example, why did your operative surrender so easily? She replied instantly. He made a tactical miscalculation. Why did he make it? Because his training. And why was his training inadequate? Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Human, if you repeat that question again. See? It works. A brief spark of amusement flickered across her face, and she turned back to the projection. Your people use words as weapons. Mostly because real weapons are expensive, I said, and because sarcasm requires no maintenance. She took a slow step around the table, circling me the same way she had on the docking bridge. But this time, her posture lacked the predatory sharpness of earlier. She seemed evaluating, calculating angles not for slaughter, but for understanding. Explain this, she said suddenly, lifting a hand to the holographic battlefield where humans created defensive patterns with unpredictable turns. Your irregular formations, they lack symmetry. That's the point, I said. Predictable patterns get you killed. Humans thrive on improvisation. She considered that. Your species embraces chaos. Only professionally. Personally, we panic and drink caffeine. She paused. For a moment, I thought she might actually laugh. Instead, her ears slowly angled forward. Then perhaps you can teach me to improvise. That depends, I said, trying to lighten the tension rising between us like static. Do you promise not to vaporize me if I give a bad lesson? Uncertain. Noted. She moved closer again, the nebula light casting shifting colors across her features. Her long ears, shimmering faintly, framed her expression in stark contrast. Her gaze wasn't hostile now, just intensely focused, as though she were studying a rare creature she hadn't decided whether to protect or dissect. Your fear response is unusual, she observed quietly. Most people say that, I replied. usually right before something terrible happens. Yet you remain standing, mostly out of habit. Her lips curved, subtle but unmistakable. A smile, small and sharp, like she wasn't entirely sure how to perform the gesture, but wanted to try. "You are a curious human," she said. "I believe this night will prove instructive." I swallowed, again, loudly, again. "And what exactly?" I asked, voice cracking only slightly. "Do you plan to instruct?" She lowered the simulation, the lights dimming around us, leaving only the nebula glowing through the towering viewport. Her silhouette stood framed against starlight, regal and dangerous, and impossibly calm. "I wish," she said, "to understand the mind of your kind, your fears, your strengths, your contradictions." She stepped closer until I could see the reflection of the nebula swirling in her eyes. "And you, Derek Cassian, will teach me." I cleared my throat. "Well, I hope you're ready for sarcasm, anxiety, and questionable decision-making. That's pretty much our core curriculum." Her ears lifted slightly in amusement. "Good," she murmured. "Then the lesson begins now." The holographic battlefield dissolved into the floor with a gentle shimmer, leaving only the distant nebula casting soft ribbons of drifting color across the chamber. The sudden quiet pressed around us, the kind of silence that normally precedes either profound revelations or catastrophic decisions. Knowing my luck, I assumed the latter. Theria stood only a step away, studying me with a level of scrutiny normally reserved for ancient relics or malfunctioning weapons. Her long ears twitched once, as though adjusting their focus, and I had the distinct impression she could hear every anxious thought rattling around inside my skull. She gestured toward a low, curved seat that rose smoothly from the floor. I hesitated, because on alien warships, even chairs had a suspiciously high chance of being torture devices. She seemed to sense my hesitation. "It is merely furniture, human," she said, then paused. "Mostly." "Mostly?" I echoed, before immediately regretting it. "It adjusts to the sitter's posture," she clarified, lowering herself onto a similar seat opposite mine. "On rare occasions, it overcorrects." "That's comforting," I muttered, sitting carefully, ready to leap up if the thing wrapped around me like a hungry octopus. Fortunately, it didn't. It simply molded itself to my shape with a soft hum. The surprise made me sit too quickly, and a small squeak escaped the chair. Absolutely the chair, not me. Theria's ears perked in amusement. "We begin with your emotional responses," she said, tapping a control panel embedded in the armrest. A faint glow surrounded me, forming a translucent field filled with drifting symbols. "This device measures subtle muscular tension and physiological shifts." "So it reads stress," I said. "Great, it's going to explode." "It does not explode," she replied calmly. Then after the briefest pause, "Any more?" I stared. Her ears flicked back, the Theria equivalent of a shrug. "Speak." I cleared my throat. "What do you want me to say?" "Describe the moment you boarded this dreadnought," she said, leaning forward with the steady patience of someone who had interrogated thousands. "Your exact feelings." "Panic, confusion, mild desire to run away." "More panic," I said. "Did I mention panic?" "Why did you feel fear?" she asked. I blinked. "Because you're the queen of the Illyri Dominion? Because you've conquered planets? Because your people consider humans a fascinating combination of irritating and fragile?" "Only some of those statements are accurate," she said. "Which ones?" "I will not tell you." "Great. Super comforting." Her expression remained unreadable, although her ears tilted forward in what I suspected was growing amusement. She entered something into the console, and the glowing field around me shifted color, turning a faint purple. "Your stress decreases when you speak humor," she observed. "That's because humor keeps humans alive," and I said. "Well, emotionally. Physically, we still do very stupid things. Such as entering my quarters voluntarily." "I wouldn't call it voluntary," I said carefully. "I was strongly encouraged. I merely gave clear instruction. That's one word for it." Her eyes narrowed in a way that made me think she was trying not to smile. Then she stood, pacing slowly around my chair. The glowing field followed her movements, displaying shifting patterns as if reacting to her proximity. "You exhibit no aggressive intent," she murmured, reading the symbols. "Your fear is steady but not overwhelming. Your mind remains active even under pressure." "That's just adrenaline and bad decision-making," I said. "Humans specialize in those." She circled behind me. I couldn't see her, but I felt the faintest breeze as her long hair shifted with her steps. Her presence radiated warmth like a quiet star. I sat very still, partly because I didn't want to disrupt the field, and partly because moving felt dangerous. When she spoke again, her voice came from above my left shoulder. Your species uses eye contact to communicate dominance and honesty. Mostly honesty, I said. Dominance is optional, unless you're a space captain. Look at me, she said. I turned carefully. She leaned down slightly, her face inches from mine. Her golden eyes reflected the nebula's drifting colors, turning them into swirling bands of violet and gold. Her long ears framed her face like delicate living ornaments. The closeness was intoxicating and terrifying at once. She studied my eyes. I studied hers. I wondered if fainting was considered diplomatic misconduct. You do not look away, she said quietly. I'm too afraid to, I whispered honestly. Acceptable, she replied, straightening with a soft motion of her ears. She resumed pacing, the field flickering with each step. Tell me another human method. Well, I said, trying to regain feeling in my legs. There's the silence technique. You stare at the person until they get uncomfortable and start talking. That is ineffective. It works on humans. She stopped, slowly turned, stared at me without blinking. 10 seconds passed. 20. I cracked instantly. Okay, nope, that's not fair. Your stare is like being microwaved. Her ears lifted, unmistakably pleased. Fascinating. Continue. I leaned back in my seat, trying to pretend I hadn't just folded like wet paper. Humans also use unexpected questions to disrupt someone's thinking. Ask me one. What do your people eat for breakfast? Her expression shifted, very slightly, into confusion. That is not relevant to interrogation. Exactly, that's the point. She seemed genuinely perplexed. You believe confusion yields truth? No, but it buys time while the other person recovers from the absurdity. She considered that. Your methods are chaotic, accurate. And yet, she said, stepping closer until the glow of the field cast soft patterns across her armor, you remain composed. I wouldn't go that far. You are not trembling? Not on the outside. Her long ears rose, soft at the edges. She examined the floating symbols again, then looked at me. There was no coldness in her voice when she finally spoke, only something measured, calculating, and strangely gentle. You are teaching me more than I anticipated, Derek Cassian. Well, I said weakly, I do try. I see that, she murmured, and I am not displeased. My stress field pulsed a bright, panicked pink. She watched it, then looked at me, then said very softly, your honesty is refreshing. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that I had no idea whether she meant it as a compliment, a threat, or something far more dangerous. The pulse of the stress field dimmed as Theria deactivated it, leaving the air strangely lighter, like a pressure had been lifted from my skin. She stepped away from the chair, moving toward the panoramic viewport where the nebula unfurled in slow rivers of violet and red. Her silhouette cut cleanly against the cosmic colors, the outline of her long ears sharp and unmistakably regal. I remained seated because my legs were currently remembering how to function, and I didn't want to interrupt their process. Humans, she said at last, clasping her hands behind her back, navigate fear through humor. I find this trait curious. That's one word for it, I murmured. Some call it coping, others call it denial. We just call it Tuesday. Her ears angled slightly, the Illyrian version of a raised eyebrow. You speak lightly of serious matters. That's our secret, I said. If we don't joke, we panic. If we panic, everything gets complicated, and usually on fire. She considered this with a slow tilt of her head. Your species sets things on fire when distressed? Accidentally, I clarified quickly. Mostly. She walked back toward me, the shifting nebula glow rippling across her armor. When she sat opposite me again, the seat formed itself around her with a soft hum. Her posture was flawless, carved from something between discipline and sheer stubborn will. I tried to sit straighter in response and immediately felt a muscle in my back protest. She noticed. You are uncomfortable, she observed. No, I said quickly. This is extremely comfortable. My spine is just filing a complaint. Her lips twitched, almost a smile, almost an insult to all her past terrifying broadcasts. You are unlike the humans I have encountered. Good or bad? I have not decided. That's fair, I said. I also haven't decided about me. She leaned forward, hands resting lightly on the chair's edge. Then tell me, in human interrogation, when does the subject reveal the truth? Usually, I said, after they get tired of talking around it. Then we will test it. Her long ears angled forward as she straightened. I will ask. You will answer. That sentence had so many dangerous implications that my soul temporarily considered leaving my body. Define answer, I said cautiously. Truthfully, she replied. Ah, so not my specialty. She ignored that. Why did you agree to join the prisoner exchange program? I blinked. That seems random. Unexpected questions, she said. Your method. You taught it. Oh, I said. Right. That's on me. She waited, expression neutral but intense, as if peeling apart my thoughts with her gaze alone. I sighed. Because I didn't want to be on the front lines. I wanted something safer. Her eyes drifted over me, unreadable. And is this safer? Compared to the front lines, I said. Only if I survive the next 10 minutes. She leaned back, her ears flicking in amusement. Honesty again? It keeps slipping out, I said. I blame the atmosphere. It is standard, breathable air. Yes, but your presence is distracting. That earned a full pause. Her long ears rose in subtle surprise. Her golden eyes narrowed, not in anger but in analysis. In what way? She asked. I said, discovering instantly that I had absolutely no safe way to finish that sentence. In a very powerful leadership kind of way. She stared for several seconds, clearly unconvinced. You are deflecting. That's a human specialty too. She stood again, walking past me toward a console built into the wall. The surface responded instantly, displaying swirling symbols I could never hope to decipher. Her long ears shifted as she entered commands, and a moment later a glass cylinder rose from the floor between us, filled with a faintly glowing mist. What's this? I asked. A truth resonance device. That sounds wildly illegal. In most sectors, yes. And in this one? She turned her head slightly. I am the law in this one. Right, I said. Good talk. She approached the device and tapped its surface. The mist inside swirled, thickening until it shimmered with soft silver light. This will amplify emotional resonance. I wish to observe your reactions while you speak of moral judgment. Oh, good, I said weakly. My favorite subject. She ignored me again, something she was alarmingly good at, and gestured for me to stand closer. When I approached, the mist reacted instantly, swirling faster, forming patterns that meant absolutely nothing to me, but apparently a great deal to her. Speak of the battle at Vera's Gate, she said. I stiffened. That's not exactly a cheerful topic. This is not an interrogation, she said. This is assessment. Feels very interrogation adjacent. Speak, she repeated. I exhaled slowly. The battle was a disaster. Both sides took losses no one wanted. Our command thought the Illyrians would surrender. Your command thought we would retreat. And who was wrong? Everyone, I said. Especially the civilians caught in the crossfire. The mist pulsed sharply. Theria's gaze flicked to it. Her long ears angled downward, a shadow crossing her expression, an emotion I couldn't name but felt deeply. Continue. You want honesty? I said quietly. Fine. The battle shouldn't have happened. A dozen diplomats could have fixed it, but pride got in the way. She stepped closer, too close. The mist glowed between us like a living vein of silver light. Whose pride? She asked. Yours, I said, before my brain could stop me. And ours. The mist blazed bright. Silence crept over the chamber like drifting smoke. Her golden eyes locked on mine, sharp, searching, unguarded in a way I had never seen. The air around us felt charged, as if the nebula outside had poured into the room. At last she spoke, voice low. You do not fear telling me this. Oh, I said softly, I am absolutely terrified. Yet you speak. I guess, I said with a shrug, humans panic in a forward direction. Her long ears lifted in a slow, unexpected motion. Something like admiration, something like recognition. You are a strange species, she murmured, but you are useful. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me this week. She stepped back, deactivated the device, and the mist dissolved into the air. Enough for tonight, she said. I have learned what I needed. Great, I said. Hey, so, do I get released now, or? She turned toward the inner door of her private chamber. Without looking back, she said, You will sleep here. My soul attempted to exit my body again, because she didn't mean in a cell. She meant in her quarters. And humor, I suspected, was no longer enough to save me. The inner door slid open with a whisper, revealing a surprisingly serene chamber beyond. Nothing like the cold, ominous throne room atmosphere I'd expected from a queen who had conquered half this region of space. Soft lights glowed from recessed panels along the walls, adjusting automatically as we entered. The air held a faint scent of something floral and metallic, like flowers that had decided they wanted to be starships when they grew up. My steps felt too loud, too human, too mortal on the smooth flooring as Theria motioned for me to follow. I did because the alternative was stay alone in the terrifying echoing dark behind me, and I'd had enough trauma for one day. Her private quarters stretched wide, with no clear division between living space, workspace, and what I hoped was sleeping space. A circular platform near the far wall held an elevated bed that glowed faintly along its edges, as if daylight had taken the form of furniture. Its design was elegant and alien, in a way that made me wonder if I'd need a manual to lie down correctly. Theria crossed to a console beside the platform and tapped it. The room responded, dimming slightly. The nebula outside the viewport shifted from fiery red to muted blue as her ship rotated. She turned toward me, long ears angled with quiet precision. "You will rest," she said, as though this were a command a sane person could obey instantly. I cleared my throat. "Right. Rest. Sure. Absolutely. Just quick question. Where?" She blinked, slow and regal. Then she pointed at a smaller structure near the chamber's center, a suspended cocoon-like shape made of translucent filaments that glowed when her hand neared it. "That is a secondary resting pod," she said. "My guards use it when assigned overnight proximity." "Oh," I said, relieved. "So I sleep in that?" "No." My relief evaporated. She walked toward the main platform and glanced back at me. "You will sleep where I can study your reactions most clearly." "My reactions?" "Yes." "To sleeping?" "Yes." "In your room?" "Yes." I nodded slowly. "Just checking that the universe hasn't broken." "You may lie on the far side of the platform," she added, gesturing. "A reasonable distance from me. Humans require more personal space." "Yes," I said. "Space. Lots of space. Entire galaxies, ideally." A flicker of something, amusement, I hoped, passed through her expression before she turned away. She began removing the heavy pieces of her ceremonial armor, placing each one on a sleek, magnetic rack embedded in the wall. Watching her remove armor was surprisingly humanizing. Each piece made a soft hiss as it detached, revealing layers of lightweight fabric beneath that moved like liquid when she walked. I did what any respectful, terrified human would do. I turned around immediately and stared very intently at a decorative wall sculpture that resembled a star collapsing in on itself. It was abstract and confusing, which matched my entire evening. "You may face me," she said after a moment. "I'm good," I replied quickly. "Human," she said, a trace of warning in her tone. I turned slowly, carefully, like a mouse facing a lion who was also his landlord. Theria wore a lighter set of garments now, still formal, still regal, but less like battlefield attire, and more like something meant for rest. Her long ears were no longer held stiff with tension. They curved gently, relaxed in a way that felt almost intimate. She approached the bed and sat gracefully on the edge, her golden hair catching the nebula light. "You hesitate," she observed. "I hesitate constantly," I admitted. "It's basically my default mode." "Come here." My legs obeyed before my brain approved. I stopped 2 meters from the bed, which felt like an incredibly safe distance given the circumstances. "That is too far," she said. "Is it?" I asked. "Because from here, I feel I can provide excellent moral support." "I require observation," she said, "not moral support." "That's fair." I approached cautiously until I stood at the opposite side of the platform. The bed surface was soft under my hand, warm as if it had its own internal heartbeat. I sat down tentatively. The surface adjusted instantly, molding to my shape. I yelped. She glanced at me. "Is it harming you?" "No," I said quickly. "It's just really proactive." She lay back on her side, facing the nebula, her long ears angled in my direction. "You will lie down as well." I eased myself onto the platform, making sure at all times that a diplomatic distance existed between us, large enough to park a small shuttle. The bed adjusted again, sighing softly, as if judging my posture. I exhaled a slow breath, trying to appear calm. "You remain tense," she said. "I am lying on the bed of an alien queen," I said. "My body is doing what it can." "Your species fascinates me," she murmured. "That's one of us." Her gaze shifted toward me briefly. "Are you afraid that I will harm you?" "I am aware," I said, "that you could flick me off this bed and directly into orbit." Her long ears lifted, subtle and graceful. "I would not." "That's oddly comforting." "Your honesty," she said quietly, "is disarming." "That's accidental." "It is valuable." I stared at the nebula through the viewport, letting the drifting lights wash over my thoughts. The room hummed with quiet, steady energy, a soft pulse beneath the bed as if the ship itself were breathing. After a long silence, she spoke again. Derek, yes, you did not lie to me today. Was I supposed to? Many would have. Well, I said, shifting slightly. I figured if I was going to die, I might as well be myself. She turned her eyes fully on me, the nebula reflecting in her irises like molten glass. You will not die here, she said. That's probably the nicest thing you've ever said to a human. I do not say things lightly, she replied. I've noticed. She watched me for a moment longer, long ears angled forward in unguarded curiosity. Then very quietly she said, Rest, Derek Cassian. Tomorrow we continue. I swallowed, nodded, and tried very hard to relax. But falling asleep beside the most feared ruler in the galaxy, in her private bed, on her ship, under her direct scrutiny? Yeah, no pressure at all. The lights dimmed to a soft twilight glow, programmed to mimic some distant Aelarian dusk cycle. I lay very still, doing my best impression of a man who definitely belonged in the private resting chamber of a galactic monarch. Spoiler, I did not. Sleep, however, refused to acknowledge my existential crisis and crept over me in slow, heavy waves. I drifted in and out, haunted by dreams of glowing truth mist and chairs that corrected posture with malicious enthusiasm. What finally jolted me awake was the ship itself. A soft vibration rolled through the floor, followed by a deeper thrumming that made the bed's surface ripple as though the dreadnought had a heartbeat. I sat up instantly, hair sticking out in directions that defied physics. Theria was already awake, propped on one elbow, her long ears sharpened forward in alertness. What was that? I whispered. A shift in the primary warp stabilizers, she said calmly. They recalibrate at dawn. Your ship recalibrates at dawn? That feels unnecessarily dramatic. Her gaze lingered on me for a moment, golden eyes half-lidded with the softness of someone not fully awake. You speak loudly in your sleep. My entire soul froze. I do what now? You muttered, repeatedly. Oh no, she continued, her expression bland, but her ears betraying faint amusement. At one point you declared, that's not my sandwich. I am unfamiliar with this human battle cry. I covered my face with both hands. I wasn't supposed to be observed while unconscious. That's cheating. Your subconscious reactions are useful, she said. They reveal truths you do not consciously choose. I'd prefer they didn't. She sat upright, the motion fluid and precise, her hair falling over her shoulders in golden waves. You fear embarrassment more than death, she observed. That is a very human thing, I admitted. She stood, moving with the quiet grace of someone who'd been trained since birth not to make noise unless she intended to. Her living armor, lighter, more flexible than yesterday's ceremonial plating, materialized from the wall's storage rack and magnetized itself perfectly around her frame. As each piece locked into place, her long ears twitched faintly, adjusting to the change in weight and temperature. Come, she said. Your lessons continue. Right now? Now! She didn't wait to see if I followed. I scrambled to stand, nearly tripping over the bed as it adjusted again with a judgmental huff. By the time I caught up to her at the chamber doors, she was already programming the next section of the ship. The corridor outside glowed with morning cycle lighting, cool blues and faint greens that shifted as we walked. Translucent conduits along the ceiling pulsed with data, and at one point a cluster of floating drones drifted past us, their spherical surfaces shimmering with scanning glyphs. One paused. This was deeply concerning. It hovered in front of me, emitted a confused warble, and circled me twice as if verifying a sighting of an endangered species. Theria glanced back. Ignore it. How? I whispered. It's judging me. It is scanning you for biometrics. And, she continued walking, it has never scanned a sleeping human before. I wasn't sure how to feel about being categorized alongside unidentified anomalies. She led me into a large circular chamber filled with suspended holographic spheres. Dozens of them drifted in the air like planets in a strangely curated solar system. Each sphere held scenes, battlefields, diplomatic councils, star charts, psychological simulations. The room was silent except for the soft chime of data streams interacting. This is the cognitive arena, Theria said. We will begin with moral evaluation. Oh, I said. Good. My favorite, followed closely by dental surgery. She tapped a gesture in the air, and one of the spheres drifted toward us. It expanded, enveloping us in a projection that felt almost real. We stood in a holographic reconstruction of a conflict zone. Broken structures, flickering fires, the distant sound of evacuation alarms. Analyze, she said. I swallowed. Looks like a civilian area caught between two advancing forces. Her voice came calm from beside me. One is yours. One is mine. Well, that's bad. You are the advisor, she said. What do you recommend? That we stop blowing things up, I said immediately. She gave me a sideways look. Be specific. Ceasefire. Pull both sides back. Open a communications corridor. Then, because humor was the only thing keeping my organs from liquefying, I added, and maybe take away their explosives until they've demonstrated good behavior. That earned me a subtle twitch of her long ears, Illyrian laughter in microscopic form. She stepped toward a fallen structure, examining the projection. Your answer prioritizes non-combatants. Generally the goal, I said, unless you're a terrible person. Another sphere slowly drifted into place, shifting the hologram to a stark war council room. High-ranking commanders, hers and ours, stood around a table. The air buzzed with tension. Advise me here, she said. Okay, I muttered. Tough crowd, but sure. You may not use humor. What? I gasped. That's illegal. You must rely solely on analysis. I physically cannot. She stared. I cracked almost instantly. Fine, fine. No jokes. But if I implode from seriousness, that's on you. The projection shifted again. A third sphere descended, this one showing a memory. Hers. I stumbled as the environment snapped into place. A throne chamber flooded with harsh red light, the sound of soldiers shouting outside. Theria standing at the center, younger, her long ears sharper, her armor bloodless but burning with fierce purpose. She said softly, "This is the day I ordered the orbital strike at Vera's gate." I turned slowly to look at her real self standing beside me. Her expression was unreadable, calm, collected, this time without any trace of jest. "You may judge," she said. My pulse quickened. "Theria, that's not exactly a safe activity. I wish to see whether your honesty holds under pressure." I exhaled. "You ordered it because you believed your enemies would never negotiate." "Yes. You were wrong." "Yes." The air thickened. Her long ears lowered slightly, not in shame but in memory. "And you regret it," I said quietly. "I cannot afford regret." "That's not what I asked." Silence settled like drifting ash. Finally she looked at me, eyes glowing faintly with nebula-colored light. "You see too much," she whispered. "Humans do that," I said. "We're inconvenient." "Useful," she murmured, soft, unexpected. The projection dissolved around us, returning us to the central chamber. She stepped closer than she ever had before, studying my face not as a subject or a threat, but something else entirely, something searching. "Your judgment," she said, "is dangerous." "Thank you," I said. "It is also necessary." I blinked. "So, what does that mean?" Her long ears lifted, elegant and sharp. "It means you will accompany me today, publicly." My stomach dropped. "In front of your court?" "Yes." "Your generals?" "Yes." "Your entire species of intimidating warrior aristocrats?" A faint curl touched her lips. "You wish to understand fear. Now you will." "That's not what I wished at all." She turned toward the corridor, gesturing for me to follow. And because my survival instincts had clearly given up, I did. The corridor leading to the Queen's Grand Hall felt longer than any hallway had a right to be. My footsteps echoed in a way that suggested the architecture itself was judging my life choices. Theria walked ahead of me with the calm, effortless grace of someone who'd already decided exactly how this day would end. Her long ears angled sharply forward, alert, regal, and unmistakably focused. I, on the other hand, radiated the energy of a man heading toward either a promotion or a public execution, and not entirely sure which one was winning the vote. The doors to the hall slid open with a deep, resonant chime. Inside, the chamber expanded like a cathedral of metal and starlight. Rank upon rank of Illyrian commanders stood waiting, their armor gleaming with shifting holographic sigils. Conversations halted, dozens of golden eyes fixed on me at once. I attempted to stand up straighter, but my nervous system filed an immediate complaint. Theria stopped at the center of the hall. When she turned to face me, the entire gathering fell silent. Even the ship's hum seemed to fade. "Derek Cassian," she said, voice carrying easily through the chamber. "Step forward." I stepped forward, which is to say I tripped forward and then pretended the stumble was part of a very advanced human greeting ritual. A few Illyrians blinked in confusion. Theria's ears made the tiniest upward flick, the closest she ever came to a laugh in public. She addressed her commanders without taking her gaze from me. This human has demonstrated qualities your reports did not predict. Honesty without subservience, fear without paralysis, insight without deceit. A murmur rippled through the hall. My palms grew slick. He has shown me truths, she continued, even when those truths challenged me. Silence again, this time sharper. One general stepped forward, his armor etched with the scars of countless battles. My queen, he said carefully, is the human some form of consultant? No, Theria said. My stomach lurched. He is my advisor. The hall erupted, not in chaos, but in the restrained disbelief of highly disciplined soldiers who could not decide whether this development was brilliant or catastrophic. Another commander bowed stiffly. With respect, my queen. Why this human? Because he does not lie to me, Theria said simply, and because you all do. That shut them up impressively fast. Her long ears angled upward, signaling the end of discussion. She dismissed the hall with a single gesture, and the commanders dispersed in orderly waves. When the last of them exited, she turned fully to me. You handled that better than expected, she said. I blinked 3,000 times, I whispered. I counted. It is irrelevant, she replied. You stood your ground. We walked together toward a quieter wing of the palace deck, the nebula's light shifting across the translucent panels beneath our feet. For once, the silence between us felt neither threatening nor awkward. It felt steady. Theria paused by a window overlooking the drifting colors outside. You changed the outcome today, she said quietly, not looking at me. Your honesty has forced me to reconsider strategies I once believed unshakable. That's good, right? I said. Strategic reconsideration beats orbital strikes. She gave a faint, humorless huff. Your influence is inconvenient. Thank you? And effective. I'll take that. Her long ears tilted slightly, considering. You came here expecting a routine exchange. Instead, you challenged a queen. I didn't mean to, I said. It just happened. Humans, she murmured, have a way of making things happen. We stood side by side for a moment, watching the nebula swirl like cosmic ink in slow motion. I realized then that she looked less like the unapproachable monarch I'd seen in broadcasts, and more like someone carrying the weight of an empire alone, with no one to tell her when she was wrong. No one until me. She turned, and for the first time since I'd met her, her expression held something unarmored, something almost vulnerable. Derek Cassian, she said softly, you have altered the trajectory of my rule, of my life. My throat tightened unexpectedly, and you've definitely altered mine. She tilted her head, studying me. Humans change when confronted with truths, she said. Have you changed? I considered that. Yeah, I said quietly. I think I have. I thought strength meant avoiding danger, staying small, staying safe. But strength is telling the truth even when it scares you, even when the person you tell it to could vaporize you for it. And you told me the truth. I'll probably keep doing it, I said. Someone has to make sure you don't blow up any more star systems. Her ears swept upward in amusement. You volunteer for this responsibility? I guess I do. A soft pulse vibrated through the floor, another stabilizer shift, or maybe just the dreadnought agreeing with my terrible life decisions. Theria stepped closer, close enough that I could see the reflection of the nebula in her eyes. Then stay, she said quietly. Not as a prisoner, not as a subject. Her voice softened, almost breaking the edges of its usual control. Stay because you are the one voice I trust not to fear me. My chest tightened, not with panic, but something warmer, heavier, unexpected. Then I'll stay, I said. Her long ears curved in a graceful, relieved arc that felt like the alien equivalent of a smile. Good, she murmured. Then our work begins in truth. I let out a slow breath. No pressure. Human, she said, stepping past me with regal confidence. You have survived a night in my chambers. There is nothing left to fear. Oh, I said, following after her. I'm sure the universe will find something. She didn't turn, but her ears lifted again, soft, amused, and unmistakably warm. And together we walked into the corridors of the dreadnought, not as queen and captive, but as something new, something neither of us had expected, something that would reshape an empire and just maybe bring a little less chaos to the galaxy, or at least redistribute it evenly.